The 30-day deadline approached like an approaching storm, and the galaxy held its breath as civilizations made choices that would determine their survival. 7 species immediately accepted human leadership, recognizing that cooperation offered better prospects than resistance. The Altarian Mining Consortium was among the first to negotiate terms, their practical nature allowing them to see the benefits of human protection for their trade routes. 12 smaller civilizations followed within the first week, sending diplomatic missions to New Terra with formal requests for inclusion in the human sphere of influence. The Crystalline Collective surprised many by offering complete integration, their logical minds calculating that human technology represented the next step in galactic evolution. Trade agreements were signed, scientific exchanges were arranged, and the first human administrators began traveling to alien worlds. But not every species was willing to accept the new reality. The Zephyrian Empire spent the entire 30 days mobilizing the largest military force in galactic history. Admiral Zektar the Destroyer commanded over 1,000 ships drawn from every corner of Zephyrian space, including the massive dreadnoughts that had never known defeat. Their destination was the Kepler 442 system, where they intended to end the human threat once and for all. Chancellor Zexar addressed his fleet commanders in a final briefing before departure, his words carrying the weight of absolute determination. The humans believe their tricks make them invincible, he declared, his blue skin gleaming under the bridge lights. But no species can stand against the combined might of the Zephyrian Empire. We will show the galaxy that human technology is nothing compared to Zephyrian courage. The Grand Fleet departed on the 28th day, their passage through hyperspace causing ripples that were detected by human sensors long before the ships arrived at their destination. Admiral Lisa Carter received the reports with calm satisfaction, having expected this exact response from the species that had led the Great Purge. Everything was proceeding according to the plans that human strategists had developed over decades of careful preparation. Admiral Carter assembled her own fleet in the space around New Terra, but her force seemed pathetically small compared to the armada approaching them. Only 50 ships answered her call, vessels that appeared delicate and fragile next to the massive Zephyrian dreadnoughts. Galactic observers who monitored the situation predicted that the battle would be swift and decisive, though they disagreed about which side would emerge victorious. The Zephyrian Grand Fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system in perfect formation, their weapons charged and shields raised for immediate combat. Admiral Zektar had positioned his forces to encircle the human colony, cutting off any possibility of retreat. His instruments showed the human fleet waiting near the inner planets, apparently resigned to defending their home system against impossible odds. Humans of New Terra. Admiral Zektar broadcast across all frequencies, his voice filled with the confidence of a commander who had never lost a battle. You have 30 minutes to surrender unconditionally. Power down your weapons, prepare for occupation, and perhaps your people will be allowed to survive as servants of the Zephyrian Empire. Admiral Carter's response was broadcast not only to the Zephyrian fleet, but to every listening post and observation station throughout the galaxy. Her calm voice carried the authority of someone who held cards that her enemies could not imagine. Admiral Zektar, your fleet is impressive by the standards of conventional warfare. Unfortunately for you, we abandoned conventional methods long ago. The battle began when Admiral Zektar gave the order to advance, his massive fleet moving toward the human positions with weapons blazing. Energy beams that could crack planets lanced through space toward targets that seemed too small and fragile to survive such firepower. The first salvo should have reduced the human fleet to glowing debris, but something impossible happened instead. The human ships simply were not there when the weapons arrived. They had shifted into dimensions that Zephyrian science did not acknowledge, becoming shadows that could not be touched by any force the aliens possessed. From their refuge outside normal space-time, the human vessels began their counterattack using methods that redefined the meaning of warfare. Captain Danny Walsh commanded the human ship Liberty as it phased back into normal space directly inside. The formation of Zephyrian dreadnoughts. His weapons did not fire conventional energy beams, but instead projected fields that reached into the atomic structure of enemy ships and simply turned off the forces that held them together. Entire dreadnoughts began to come apart at the molecular level, their crews helplessly watching as their mighty vessels dissolved around them. The human fleet moved through the Zephyrian formation like ghosts, appearing and disappearing at will. While their impossible weapons reduced the pride of the Empire to expanding clouds of component atoms, Admiral Zektar watched in horror as ships that had served for centuries vanished without trace, their crews transported to human vessels in the instant before their ships ceased to exist. "This is impossible," Admiral Zektar whispered as his own flagship shuddered under the assault of weapons that operated on principles beyond his understanding. No species possesses such technology. The laws of physics forbid what you are doing. Admiral, Carter's voice filled the communication channels as the last Zephyrian ships fell silent. "Admiral, your physics are incomplete. We have spent 2 centuries learning truths that your scientists have not yet discovered. The universe is far stranger and more wonderful than any of your people have imagined. The battle that was supposed to determine the fate of the galaxy lasted less than 4 hours. When it ended, the Zephyrian Grand Fleet had ceased to exist, its 1,000 ships reduced to their component atoms and scattered across the solar system. The crews had been safely transported to human vessels where they would be treated well, but would never again serve the empire that had sent them to their destruction. News of the Zephyrian defeat spread through the galaxy faster than light, carried by observation posts and spy networks that had monitored the battle from beginning to end. The message was clear to every species that received the reports. Resistance to human authority was not only futile, but completely impossible. The balance of power had shifted so dramatically that old concepts of military strength no longer had meaning. Within days of the battle, the remaining holdout civilizations began sending diplomatic missions to New Terra. The hegemony forces surrendered their territorial claims in exchange for protection of their trade routes. The Saurian Republic offered complete integration in return for human assistance with their environmental problems. Even the proud Nexarian Assembly requested negotiations rather than face the fate of the Zephyrian Empire. President Rodriguez received each delegation with the dignity befitting humanity's new position as the dominant force in galactic civilization. Terms were generous for those who accepted human leadership willingly, offering protection, prosperity, and the benefits of human technology in exchange for cooperation with the new order. The changes were implemented gradually to avoid disrupting established societies, but the direction was clear to everyone involved. Governor Michelle Brooks arrived at the former Altarian capital of Vex-High Prime to establish the first human protectorate outside the original colony. She was a woman with extensive experience in colonial administration and a gentle manner that helped ease the transition to human oversight. Her first act was to end the mining disputes that had plagued the system for decades, implementing resource sharing, agreements that benefited all parties. The transformation of Vex-High Prime became a model for human expansion throughout the galaxy. Ancient feuds were resolved through arbitration rather than warfare. Trade routes were reorganized to eliminate conflict and maximize prosperity. Scientific research was accelerated through the sharing of human knowledge with alien researchers who had never imagined such possibilities. Dr. Sarah Kim established the Galactic Research Institute on the former Zephyrian homeworld, converting military installations into laboratories where the greatest minds from dozens of species worked, together on projects that would benefit all of galactic civilization. The weapons factories that had produced instruments of war were retooled to manufacture medical equipment and scientific instruments that would improve life for billions of beings. Captain Mitchell led the establishment of the Galactic Protection Service, a peacekeeping force that prevented conflicts before they could begin rather than responding to them after destruction had already occurred. His ships patrolled trade routes and monitored border regions, their mere presence enough to discourage any thoughts of aggression between species that had previously been enemies. The new order that humanity established was based on principles that the founders of New Terra had developed during their centuries of hidden growth. Cooperation replaced competition as the driving force of galactic civilization. Scientific advancement was shared rather than hoarded as a military advantage. Resources were distributed according to need rather than the ability to take them by force. The Vega demonstration sent shockwaves through every civilization in the galaxy. Emergency sessions were called on dozens of homeworlds as governments tried to understand what humanity's technological superiority meant for their future. Trade, routes that had been stable for centuries, suddenly seemed vulnerable to human intervention. Military alliances that had kept peace between species for generations now appeared useless against an enemy that could disable entire fleets without firing a shot. The Zephyrian Empire was the first to call for action. Chancellor Zexhar addressed his war council in the great crystal chamber beneath the capital city, his blue skin dark with anger as he outlined the threat that humanity represented. The Zephyrians had built their power on military strength and technological superiority over other species. The idea that humans possessed weapons that could make Zephyrian fleets helpless was more than the Chancellor could accept. "We cannot allow this human colony to dictate terms to the galaxy," Chancellor Zexhar declared, his voice echoing off the crystal walls. "They are still only one system against thousands. Their technology may be advanced, but they cannot be everywhere at once. We must strike before they can expand further." Admiral Zektar the Destroyer supported his Chancellor's position with the fervor of a warrior who had never known defeat. He was a massive Zephyrian with scars from a dozen battles and eyes that burned with the desire for combat. His fleet had crushed rebellions across 3 sectors and had led the final assault on Earth during the Great Purge. The idea that humans had survived and grown strong enough to challenge Zephyrian power filled him with rage. "Give me the Grand Fleet, Chancellor," Admiral Zektar requested, his deep voice carrying the promise of violence. 1,000 ships with our most advanced weapons. The humans may have tricks that work against smaller forces, but no technology can stand against such overwhelming power. We will finish what we started 50 years ago. Other species watched the Zephyrian preparations with growing concern. The Altarians called for negotiation, while the Crystalline Collective proposed a defensive alliance. Smaller civilizations found themselves caught between their fear of human expansion and their terror of Zephyrian revenge. The galaxy had not seen such tension since the Wars of Succession 3 centuries earlier. President Amy Rodriguez received reports of the galactic crisis from her office in New Geneva, the capital city of New Terra. She was a woman in her 60s who had been elected to lead the human colony during its most crucial period. Her silver hair and gentle manner concealed a mind that had spent decades planning for this exact situation. Unlike the military leaders who had revealed humanity's survival, she understood the political currents that would determine the galaxy's future. Dr. Kevin Blake's original plan had anticipated this moment when humanity would face the choice between hiding forever or claiming their place among the stars. The colony's founders had debated endlessly about the right time to reveal themselves, knowing that they would have only one chance to establish their position. President Rodriguez had concluded that the Vega demonstration was the perfect opening. But she also knew that the galaxy's response would determine whether humanity's future held peace or war. The president called for a full session of the Colonial Senate to debate their next move. Representatives from all three worlds and dozens of space habitats gathered in the Great Hall that had been built to rival the Galactic Assembly on Nexus Prime. The debate was intense but civilized as humans who had spent their lives preparing. For this moment finally had the chance to shape galactic history. Senator Mark Hughes argued for immediate expansion to claim all 17 systems before other species could organize opposition. He was a younger man whose family had arrived during the second wave of colonization, and he believed that humanity's advantage would not last forever. "We have the technology and the element of surprise," he argued. "Every day we wait gives our enemies time to adapt and prepare countermeasures." Senator Patricia Wells disagreed, proposing instead that humanity should focus on diplomatic solutions that would avoid unnecessary conflict. She was a descendant of the original colonists and remembered the stories of Earth's destruction that the first generation had passed down. "We have proven our strength," she said. "Now we must prove our wisdom. The galaxy will accept us if we show that human leadership brings peace rather than conquest." President Rodriguez listened to both sides before presenting her own plan. One, that balanced strength with diplomacy in a way that would give humanity the maximum advantage. The plan was bold and dangerous, requiring precise timing and absolute commitment from every human in the colony. If it succeeded, humanity would secure their place as the dominant power in the galaxy. If it failed, they would face the combined wrath of every species that saw them as a threat. "We will address the galaxy directly," President Rodriguez announced to the Senate. "Not through the Council, not through diplomatic channels, but as one sovereign people speaking to all others. We will present our terms clearly and give every species the choice to accept human leadership or face the consequences of continued conflict." The broadcast was scheduled for maximum impact, transmitted simultaneously to every homeworld and major colony in the galaxy. President Rodriguez appeared on screens throughout known space, speaking from the Great Council chamber of New Terra with the symbols of human achievement visible behind her. Her words were translated into hundreds of languages as billions of beings heard humanity's ultimatum for the first time. "People of the galaxy," President Rodriguez began, her voice calm but filled with authority. "I am President Amy Rodriguez of New Terra and the allied human colonies. I speak to you today not as a supplicant seeking acceptance, but as the leader of a people who have earned their place among the stars through centuries of sacrifice and determination." The broadcast showed images of human achievement that stunned viewers across the galaxy. Cities that stretched beyond the horizon on 3 terraformed worlds. Orbital shipyards that produced vessels using technology decades ahead of anything the galactic powers possessed. Scientific laboratories where human researchers pushed the boundaries of physics and engineering. mining operations that extracted resources from asteroids using methods that seemed almost magical. For 50 years, you have believed that humanity was extinct, President Rodriguez continued. You divided our empty homeworld among yourselves and celebrated the elimination of a people you considered dangerous. But you were wrong about us then, and you are wrong about us now. We did not die. We grew stronger. The images changed to show the true scope of human development. Survey ships exploring distant galaxies beyond the reach of any other species. Research stations where scientists work to unlock the secrets of the universe itself. Construction projects that would reshape entire solar systems according to human design. The message was clear. Humanity had used their hidden centuries to become something that the galaxy had never seen before. President Rodriguez outlined humanity's demands with the precision of a leader who had spent years preparing for this moment. Recognition of human sovereignty over any system they chose to claim. Reparations for the attempted genocide that had destroyed Earth and its early colonies. Most importantly, acceptance of human oversight in galactic affairs to prevent future conflicts between species. We do not seek to rule you as conquerors, President Rodriguez explained, her words carrying the weight of absolute conviction. We seek to guide you as teachers who have learned hard lessons about the cost of war. The galaxy has known too much. Conflict, too much suffering caused by species that cannot resolve their differences peacefully. Under human leadership, that age will end. The ultimatum was simple and direct. Species that accepted human authority would be protected and would prosper under the new order that humanity would establish. They would keep their governments, their cultures, and their freedoms as long as they contributed to galactic peace. Trade would flourish, scientific advancement would accelerate, and conflicts would be resolved through arbitration rather than warfare. Those who rejected human leadership would face the full force of human technology and determination. The Vega demonstration had shown that traditional military power was useless against human weapons. Future conflicts would be swift and decisive, with human forces implementing whatever changes were necessary to maintain order. You have seen what we can accomplish when we choose to act, President Rodriguez said as the broadcast drew to its conclusion. The choice before you is simple. Accept the peace we offer, or face the consequences of continued conflict. We do not make this ultimatum lightly, but we will not allow the mistakes of the past to be repeated. The broadcast ended with a deadline that sent panic through government halls across the galaxy. Every species had 30 days to declare their position regarding human leadership. Those who accepted would begin immediate negotiations for integration into the new order. Those who refused would discover what 2 centuries of human innovation could accomplish when properly motivated. As the deadline approached, the galaxy prepared for changes that would reshape civilization itself. Some species began quiet negotiations with. 3 weeks passed after Admiral Carter's revelation, and the Galactic Council remained deadlocked in endless debates. Some species wanted to negotiate with the humans, while others demanded immediate military action. The Zephyrian Empire insisted that no territory could be claimed without proper authorization, while the Altarians worried about the technological gap that the humans had revealed. Meanwhile, smaller civilizations watched nervously as the great powers argued about how to handle a threat that none of them fully understood. The deadlock ended when the Council received reports of a new crisis in the Vega system. 3 different species had been fighting over mining rights there for over a decade, with none able to claim complete control. The hegemony forces, the Altarian Mining Consortium, and the Crystalline Collective had built rival stations throughout the system, creating a complex web of territorial disputes that defied resolution. Chancellor Zexhar saw an opportunity to test human claims while resolving an ongoing problem. He proposed that if the humans wanted recognition of their territorial rights, they should prove their capabilities by bringing order to the Vega system. The challenge was broadcast to Nuterra with a simple message: demonstrate your authority or abandon your claims. Admiral Carter's response came within hours, and it was not what anyone expected. Instead of negotiating terms or protesting the EIS challenge, she simply accepted. A small human fleet would travel to the Vega system and resolve the territorial disputes within 72 hours. If they succeeded, the Galactic Council would begin formal recognition proceedings for human territory. Captain Ryan Mitchell received the assignment with quiet confidence. He was a man in his 40s with steady hands and eyes that had seen combat in the secret wars that humanity had fought while building their civilization. His ship, the Independence, was one of the new generation vessels that incorporated all the advances human science had achieved over 2 centuries of hidden development. Mitchell's fleet consisted of only 5 ships, a force so small that Galactic observers wondered if the humans understood the scope of the challenge they faced. The Vega system contained over 300 military vessels from 3 different civilizations, along with defensive installations that had been built to withstand massive assaults. Previous attempts to bring order to the system had required fleets of dozens of ships and had always ended in stalemate. The journey to Vega took Mitchell's fleet through several systems controlled by different galactic powers. At each stop, observers watched the human ships with instruments that recorded everything they could detect. The vessels moved smoothly through hyperspace using methods that produced no detectable energy signatures. Their hulls seemed to absorb sensor scans, making detailed analysis impossible. Most disturbing of all, they traveled faster than should have been possible with any known technology. Admiral Kretok of the Altarian forces was waiting when the human fleet arrived at the edge of the Vega system. His instruments immediately began scanning the human ships, but the results made no sense. The vessels appeared to exist in multiple locations simultaneously, their positions shifting in ways that defied the laws of physics. Power readings fluctuated between 0 and infinity, suggesting energy sources that operated on principles beyond galactic understanding. Captain Mitchell opened communication channels to all forces in the system, his calm voice reaching every ship and station simultaneously. "This is Captain Ryan Mitchell of the New Terra Defense Force. By authority of the Galactic Council Challenge, this system is now under human administration. All military vessels will power down weapons and prepare for peaceful transition of authority." The response was immediate and predictable. Commanders from all 3 factions rejected human authority and demanded that Mitchell's small fleet leave immediately. Weapon systems came online across the system as hundreds of ships prepared for battle. Defensive stations activated shields and began charging their most powerful weapons. The Vega system had never seen such unity as all 3 factions prepared to destroy the human intruders. Captain Mitchell's next words were heard clearly despite the chaos of battle preparations. "Very well. Since peaceful transition is not acceptable, we will demonstrate alternative methods. All personnel should secure themselves for immediate system pacification." What happened next became known as the Miracle of Vega, though those who witnessed it used less complimentary terms. The 5 human ships simply vanished from normal space, disappearing from every sensor and visual tracking system in the system. For several minutes, nothing seemed to happen as the 3 factions searched frantically for targets that were no longer there. Then the human ships began to reappear, but not where anyone expected them. The Independence materialized directly next to the Hegemony command station, so close that crew members could see each other through the viewports. Before anyone could react, a beam of impossible energy passed between the ships, and every system on the Hegemony station went dark. The pattern repeated throughout the system as human ships appeared next to each target in turn. They moved through space as if distance had no meaning, striking with weapons that passed through shields as if they were not there. Each attack was precisely calibrated to disable rather than destroy, shutting down weapons and propulsion while leaving life support intact. Admiral Kretok watched in growing horror as his own flagship was approached by the human vessel Defiance. The ship appeared without warning directly above his command deck, its hull glowing with energy that his instruments could not identify. The weapon that struck his ship felt like nothing he had ever experienced, a gentle touch that somehow reached into every system and turned off the power. Within 3 hours, every military vessel in the Vega system was floating helplessly in space. The defensive stations were dark and quiet, their mighty weapons reduced to expensive decorations. Throughout the system, emergency power provided life support while crews sat in shocked silence, trying to understand how their forces had been defeated without a single shot fired in return. Captain Mitchell's voice filled the communication channels, once again calm and professional as if nothing unusual had happened. System pacification is complete. All vessels will remain powered down while transition protocols are implemented. Medical assistance will be provided to any crew members who require it. The human ships began moving through the system, deploying devices that restored partial power to the disabled vessels. Crews found that their life support, communication, and basic navigation systems were functional, but weapons and military sensors remained offline. It was a demonstration of control so complete that resistance seemed pointless. Admiral Kretok found his voice first among the defeated commanders. Captain Mitchell, how did you do this? Our shields should have protected us. Our weapons should have been able to target your ships. Captain Mitchell's image appeared on screens throughout the system, his expression serious but not unkind. Admiral, your technology is based on principles that we moved beyond decades ago. Your shields exist in normal space-time, but our weapons operate from dimensions that your physics has not yet discovered. Your sensors look for energy signatures that we learned to hide long before you knew we existed. The demonstration continued, as human ships began establishing order in the Vega system. Mining disputes that had lasted for years were resolved in hours as human arbitrators reviewed competing claims and made decisions that somehow satisfied all parties. Trade routes were reorganized to eliminate conflicts, and new stations were positioned to support peaceful development rather than military dominance. Dr. Susan Walsh, the human administrator assigned to oversee the transition, addressed the system's population in a broadcast that reached every ship and station. She was a woman with kind eyes and a voice that carried authority without threat. Her words offered hope to civilians who had lived with constant warfare for over a decade. The Vega system is now under human protection, Dr. Walsh announced. All legitimate mining operations will continue under new guidelines that ensure fair distribution of resources. Civilian traffic will be protected, and trade disputes will be resolved through arbitration rather than warfare. Those who accept human authority will find that peace brings prosperity that war never could. The transformation was so rapid and complete that observers struggled to believe what they were seeing. Within 24 hours, the Vega system had gone from a war zone to a model of peaceful cooperation. Ships that had been enemies for years were working together under human supervision, discovering that they could accomplish more through collaboration than they ever had through conflict. News of the Vega demonstration spread throughout the galaxy faster than the human ships had moved through the system. The implications were clear to every species that received the reports. Humanity possessed technology that made traditional military force obsolete. They could appear anywhere, disable any defense, and impose their will without destroying those who opposed them. Captain Mitchell's final message to the Galactic Council was simple and direct. The Vega system is now under human administration as requested. We await your response regarding formal recognition of our... The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within 12 hours of Admiral Kreetak's report. Representatives from every major civilization crowded into the Great Hall, their usual political games forgotten in the face of an impossible crisis. The humans were supposed to be extinct, yet a massive human colony had appeared from nowhere, claiming territory and displaying technology that none of them understood. Chancellor Zexhar of the Zephyrian Empire stood at the center of the hall, his blue skin pale with shock as he addressed the assembly. The Zephyrians had led the Great Purge 50 years ago, convinced that humanity posed a threat to galactic order. They had struck first and hardest, reducing Earth to a burned wasteland and hunting down every human ship they could find. The idea that humans had survived and thrived in secret was almost too much to accept. We must verify these claims before taking any action, Chancellor Zexhar announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. Perhaps this is some elaborate deception by another species. Humans could not have hidden such a massive civilization from our surveillance networks. The Altarian delegate, Speaker Voxhigh, clicked her mandibles in disagreement. The energy signatures are real, Chancellor. Our best scientists have analyzed the data, and the construction patterns match no known technology. If this is deception, it is beyond our ability to detect. Arguments erupted across the hall as different species proposed theories and solutions. Some wanted immediate military action, while others called for careful investigation. The debate continued for hours until a new transmission arrived from the Kepler 442 system. The humans were requesting a formal diplomatic meeting. Admiral Lisa Carter appeared on the great screens that surrounded the council chamber. She was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and eyes that held decades of hidden knowledge. Her uniform was similar to Commander Morrison's, but with additional markings that indicated high rank. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who had been preparing for this moment her entire life. Honored representatives of the Galactic Council, Admiral Carter began, her tone respectful but firm. I am Admiral Lisa Carter, Supreme Commander of New Terra and its allied colonies. I am authorized to speak for all human settlements in this region of space. Chancellor Zexhar stepped forward, his tall frame towering over the projection controls. Admiral Carter, if that is your real title, you must understand our confusion. According to all records, humanity was eliminated 50 years ago. How do you explain your presence here? Admiral Carter's expression remained calm as she delivered words that would change galactic history forever. Chancellor, you are correct that Earth and its early colonies were destroyed 50 years ago. However, you missed something important. In your genocide, this colony was not established after your attack. We have been here for over 200 years. The silence in the chamber was complete. Every representative stared at the screen as the implications became clear. If humans had been in the Kepler 442 system for 2 centuries, they had arrived there before first contact with the galaxy. They had been building and developing in secret while the galactic powers considered them primitive newcomers confined to Earth. That is impossible, Chancellor Zexhar said, his voice barely above a whisper. Our first contact with humanity was only 80 years ago. Your species had barely achieved faster-than-light travel. Admiral Carter smiled, and the expression was filled with secrets. Your first contact was with Earth's government, Chancellor. Earth was never the only human colony. A group of our best scientists and engineers left Earth 2.5 centuries ago, led by a visionary named Dr. Kevin Blake. They foresaw the conflicts that would come when humanity met other intelligent species. The screens around the chamber changed to show historical records that none of them had ever seen. Ships launching from Earth in secret, carrying thousands of humans and the most advanced technology available. Star charts showing routes through unexplored space to distant systems. Construction projects that had been hidden from galactic surveillance through methods that still seemed impossible. Dr. Blake understood that humanity would face challenges when we encountered galactic civilization, Admiral Carter continued. He also understood that we needed time to develop and prepare. So he led 20,000 volunteers into the unknown, carrying with them the seeds of everything you see today. Chancellor Zexhar found his voice again, though it shook with emotion. Why did Earth never mention these colonies? Why did they allow themselves to be destroyed when they could have called for help? Admiral Carter's expression hardened, and for the first time, anger showed in her eyes. Earth's government chose to trust in galactic civilization. They believed that cooperation and peaceful contact would lead to mutual prosperity. Dr. Blake disagreed, and he was right. When your purge fleets arrived at Earth, we received their final transmission asking for help that we were not yet ready to provide. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers as representatives realized the full scope of human planning. The survivors had watched their homeworld burn while remaining hidden, building strength for a confrontation they knew would come eventually. They had spent 50 years preparing for this moment, while the galaxy celebrated humanity's supposed extinction. Admiral Carter activated new displays showing the true extent of human development. 3 fully terraformed worlds supported over 2 billion people. Orbital shipyards produced vessels using technology that was decades ahead of anything the galaxy possessed. Mining operations on dozens of asteroids fed construction projects that continued around the clock. We have spent 2 centuries developing methods that your civilizations have never imagined, Admiral Carter explained. We learned to manipulate matter at the quantum level, to draw energy from the vacuum of space itself, to move through dimensions that your physics says do not exist. While you divided up our empty homeworld, we were becoming something new. The displays showed weapons tests that made the galactic representatives step back in fear. Human ships phased in and out of normal space, striking targets that should have been protected by the strongest shields. Energy beams that ignored all known defenses, reducing massive asteroids to their component atoms in seconds. Construction. Drones that could build entire cities in months, using nothing but raw materials and programmed instructions. Speaker Voxhai of the Altarians was the first to ask the question that everyone was thinking. Admiral Carter, what do you want from us? Why reveal yourselves now after so many years in hiding? Admiral Carter's expression became serious as she delivered the words that would reshape galactic politics. We want justice for the attempted genocide of our species. We want recognition of our territorial claims. Most importantly, we want assurance that what happened to Earth will never happen to anyone again. Chancellor Zexhar felt cold fear spreading through his body as he understood the implications. The humans were not asking for help or seeking to join galactic civilization. They were making demands backed by technology that could enforce those demands against any opposition. "And if we refuse?" Chancellor Zexhar asked, though he dreaded the answer. Admiral Carter's smile returned, but now it held no warmth at all. "Then you will discover what 2 centuries of human innovation can accomplish, when properly motivated. We have been patient, Chancellor. We have watched and learned and prepared. But our patience is not infinite." The transmission ended, leaving the Galactic Council to face a new reality. Humanity had not only survived their attempt at genocide, but had used the time to become stronger than any of them had imagined. The balance of power in the galaxy was about to shift, and there was nothing any of them could do to stop it. Outside the Great Hall, emergency meetings began, as each species tried to understand what this meant for their future. The age of galactic dominance by the old powers was ending, and the age of humanity was about to begin. The warning signals came from the edge of known space where no one was supposed to live. Deep space sensors detected massive energy readings from the Kepler 442 system, a place that had been empty for centuries according to every galactic map. The readings were impossible to ignore because they showed construction on a scale that matched the greatest civilizations in the galaxy. Commander Vexhai of the Zephyrian fleet was the first to receive the report. His long blue fingers tapped against the metal surface of his command chair as he studied the data streams flowing across his screens. The energy signatures were unlike anything he had seen before, showing power outputs that exceeded even the great shipyards of the Altarian Empire. Someone or something was building massive structures in that distant system, and they were doing it without permission from the Galactic Council. The council meeting was called within hours. Representatives from 12 different species gathered in the Great Hall on Nexus Prime, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes around the circular table. The Zephyrians with their blue skin and tall frames sat across from the insect-like Altarians, while the gaseous Nebulans floated in their containment suits near the crystalline Zarians. Every species had the same question: who dared to claim territory without galactic approval? Admiral Kretok of the Altarian forces was chosen to lead the investigation fleet. His compound eyes reflected the light from the chamber's crystals as he accepted the mission. 3 ships from each of the major powers would make the journey to Kepler 442, enough firepower to handle any known threat in the galaxy. They would discover who was behind this unauthorized construction and put a stop to it immediately. The journey took 2 weeks through hyperspace, and the fleet emerged at the edge of the Kepler 442 system with weapons ready and shields raised. What they found waiting for them defied every expectation and challenged everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. The system was alive with activity. Massive space stations orbited the central star, each one larger than the greatest. Cities on any homeworld. Ships moved between the stations and 3 terraformed planets, their hulls gleaming with an unknown metal that seemed to bend light around itself. The construction was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, showing a level of technology that none of the galactic powers possessed. Admiral Kretok ordered his ships to advance slowly while sensors scanned everything they could see. The readings were impossible to believe. The 3 planets showed signs of massive populations, with cities that stretched across entire continents. The space stations were producing ships at a rate that would require the combined industrial capacity of 5 major civilizations. Whoever lived here had been building for a very long time. Before the fleet could get closer, their instruments detected movement. A single ship appeared on their screens, moving toward them at impossible speed. The vessel was sleek and elegant, about the size of a heavy cruiser, but with design elements that none of them recognized. It moved without the energy trails that marked normal propulsion, seeming to glide through space as if the laws of physics bent around it. The unknown ship stopped exactly 1 million kilometers from the galactic fleet and opened a communication channel. The view screen flickered to life, and Admiral Kretok found himself looking at something that made his blood run cold. The being on the screen was human. Humans were supposed to be extinct. The Great Purge had happened 50 years ago when the combined forces of the galaxy had struck at Earth and its colonies. Every human world had been destroyed, their ships scattered, their people eliminated. The galactic powers had celebrated the end of the human threat, dividing up the empty systems among themselves. Yet here was a human, very much alive, speaking to them from the command deck of an advanced starship. The human was a male with brown hair and calm eyes that seemed to see right through the galactic fleet's defenses. He wore a simple uniform of dark blue with silver trim, and his expression showed no fear despite facing ships that should have been able to destroy him easily. When he spoke, his voice was steady and confident. "I am Commander Jake Morrison of the New Terra Defense Force," the human said, his words causing shocked silence on every ship in the fleet. "You have entered human space without permission. State your business here or leave immediately." Admiral Kretok's mandibles clicked together in confusion. Human space was supposed to be empty ruins floating in the void. The New Terra Defense Force was a name that appeared in no galactic database. This human spoke as if he commanded territory and resources, as if his people had not been wiped from existence decades ago. "Human, you are mistaken," Admiral Kretok replied, his translated voice carrying across the communication channel. "This system belongs to no one. Your species was eliminated 50 years ago by order of the Galactic Council. You have no legal claim to any territory." Commander Morrison's expression did not change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. "Admiral, you are the one who is mistaken. This system has been under human control for over 2 centuries. We have never recognized the authority of your Galactic Council, and we certainly don't recognize any claims based on attempted genocide." The words hit the galactic fleet like physical blows. 2 centuries of human control meant this colony existed before the Great Purge. It meant humans had been here, building and growing, while the galaxy believed them to be primitive newcomers. It meant everything they thought they knew about human capability was wrong. Commander Morrison continued speaking, his calm tone making his words even more disturbing. "You will find detailed territorial claims in the data package we are transmitting to your ships now. Our boundaries are clearly marked, and they include this entire system plus 17 others in the local cluster. We suggest you update your star charts accordingly." Admiral Kretok's sensors confirmed the data transmission, showing claims to vast areas of space that the galactic powers had considered empty. The territorial boundaries were marked with automated beacons that his instruments had somehow missed during their approach. The technology behind those beacons was completely unknown, suggesting human science had advanced far beyond galactic understanding. "This is impossible," Admiral Kretok said, his voice betraying his shock. "Our sensors show massive populations and industrial capacity. Where did you get the resources for such construction? How did you hide this from galactic surveillance for 50 years? Commander Morrison smiled for the first time, and the expression was not reassuring. "We didn't hide, Admiral. We simply made sure you weren't looking in the right places. As for resources, we've had 200 years to develop our methods. You might be surprised what humans can accomplish when they put their minds to it." The Galactic Fleet found themselves in an impossible situation. They had come expecting to find smugglers or pirates, perhaps a small mining operation that had escaped notice. Instead, they faced a human civilization that claimed vast territories and obviously possessed technology that made their own ships look primitive. The implications were staggering and terrifying. Commander Morrison's next words confirmed their worst fears. "Gentlemen, you have exactly 1 hour to leave our territory. After that, we will consider your presence an act of war. I suggest you use that time to contact your superiors and inform them that the reports of humanity's death have been greatly exaggerated." The communication channel closed, leaving the Galactic Fleet alone with the impossible truth. Humanity had survived, thrived, and built an empire in secret while the galaxy celebrated their destruction. The balance of power that had existed for 50 years was about to change forever.